Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Noble. I am the CEO of Sofco, and today I'd like you to welcome you all to the new Integrated Planning Suite launch. For those of you who are customers, as you know, we currently have very good products, have done for a number of years, strong functionality, mature. But what we're going to show you today is something that's been in process for over 2 years, and what we want to try and do is present to you the next generation of software, not only from a technology point of view, but from 100 or so man years of expertise that's gone into developing this product. We want to try and excite you by this product. It's something that, we've been doing, as I said, for 2 years. And I remember the launch of the original products and how people looked at them and thought, wow, this is great. We want the same reaction from you today. We'll hopefully get that reaction today, because that's been the remit from the start of this all the way along. This is a major milestone for Sofco. Existing customers, these products are available now. We've created simple migration tools, so it's very easy to move from where you are to the new software. And also, we've developed a lot of new function in the product. The product themselves is built on 4 pillars. We have technology, function, user experience, and machine learning. Today we're focusing on supply planning, and I'd just like to touch a little bit more briefly on those 4 pillars of development. Firstly, technology. The new products is built on a multi-browser user interface. We have developed a unified database to make the collection of master data so much more simpler. The products themselves will work on desktop, laptop, tablet, and phone. In addition to that, we've increased the performance tenfold, so that the speed of calculation, the speed of algorithms, the speed of interaction between the screens is hugely increased. And obviously, this is now all fully deployable on any of the cloud options. From a function point of view, as I said, we're focused on supply planning. We've introduced new data quality dashboards. For those existing customers, you will know that the quality of data has a huge impact on the plan, and we've introduced some new functionality to manage that. New routines and bomb functionality, and Jonathan's going to talk a lot more detail about that and also about our new FPA algorithm. And in addition, we have given the ability to adopt DDMRP. User experience. We've introduced something called the concept of insights. This is where the application itself will do its own diagnosis of results and suggest alternatives. We've increased the functionality of navigating to exceptions and resolving those exceptions and understanding the results of the plan. On top of that, as I've already mentioned, the speed of plan calculations, and also the new applications have its own integrated workflow, Office 365 integration, and integration to Power BI. And finally, one of the buzzwords that's been around for a number of years, machine learning. Sofco have adopted this. We have a new term called hyperparameterization, where we're planning the application with the use of the power of the technology to learn from the data that we're collecting, learning from the actuals, and bringing back to the users insights rather than a black box solution. And the ability to therefore run scenarios against these insights to hopefully improve your decision making. I'm going to hand over to Jonathan now, and Jonathan is going to go into the software in a lot more detail.
Okay, thank you, Keith. So as I'm stepping through, if you have any questions, you should see at the top right hand side of your screen a button, live event Q&A. So if you have any questions, please type them into there and we'll collect those questions. And we've got myself on hand to answer questions, Keith and Paul Worthington, who is the technical manager here and responsible for all of the technical things. And hopefully we'll have some time at the end to share some of those questions and provide some answers. So, as Keith has said, I'm going to just add some more detail to the topics that Keith has already covered. So I want to start with technology first, because there is a lot of new technology in there that we're using. So first thing up is deployment options. So this is available in different options, and of course there are options within options. So firstly, software as a service, where everything is in the cloud. This can be with Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. Equally, we can use the cloud as a platform as a service. Alternatively, Softco can actually host the platform, and we have a customer doing this with us at the moment in terms of collaboration with external third parties. And of course, the application can be deployed in the on-premise format. Okay, so those are the options, and don't forget options within options. In terms of the architecture, we've always been closely aligned and always heavily used Microsoft technologies, and we're continuing to do that. Obviously, database, Microsoft SQL Server, latest versions using .NET 5, but with the introduction of the new web-based front end, that's based on HTML5, and of course that can be deployed on PC, tablet and mobile, and then the mobile clients of Apple and Android. In terms of authentication, Active Directory authentication remains. The internal Sofco authentication in terms of profiles, in terms of data access and rights access, all of that authority remains within the system, and additionally Microsoft Azure Active Directory. Keith mentioned performance, and this is something that's close to the hearts of really every user and everybody in IT. We want it to perform and perform well. So how will this be visualized, or how will this work for the users? It's about data retrieval and committing data, it's screen refresh times, and for complex supply planning calculations, it's the runtime of that algorithm. We're achieving it using the latest SQL technology, but particularly I would point out we're using the latest in-memory distributed caching technology. And this technology has its origins in high transaction volume banking. So it's built to perform. And these are all Microsoft-based technologies. Now then, there are multiple multis within the system as well. So this applies all the way through the system, but it's not limited to what I have on screen here. So of the multiples, starting at the left, mentioned this already, can be deployed on multiple devices, and that may be different, obviously, depending on the role of the user. Supports multiple browsers. We've got probably the 4 most popular ones showing in Chrome, in Edge, Firefox and Safari. Multiple languages. When we get into software, I'll show you how we switch the languages. Multi-unit of measure, multi-currency, those are by no means exhaustive, just examples. And the system as well, this is important for different types of businesses in different sectors, multi-dimensional and multiple hierarchies. So I've got examples of the main dimensions that we typically use in a deployment, and the hierarchies as well, how these often fit to the structure of the ERP systems within a particular business. So all of this modeling is available, and the scalability as well, whether it's a small deployment, single site, maybe even a single user, all the way up to multinational organizations with sites in multiple countries on multiple continents, with multiple currencies, multiple languages, and large numbers of users, both internally and working externally. And all of this as well is configurable. So yes, Sofco comes with a deployment template, predefined screens, predefined workflows, predefined structures. All of this can be modeled to fit a business. So the level of high configurability, if that's a real word, that we've always had with Sofco, then that remains. There are a number of things as well that work system-wide. whether it be with supply planning, whether it be with demand planning, or when in scheduling. So for instance, dynamic dashboards, we'll have a look at some of those today, scenario planning, reporting and analysis. So a lot of reporting and analysis can be done on screen with drill down to root causes, but equally that linkage with Microsoft, or the integration, should I say, with Microsoft Power BI. And we've also built workflow into the system. I'll mention that a little bit more shortly. Okay, let's take a first look at it and have a look at some screens and a software demonstration. I'll take you through a few screens, a few key navigations, and then from there, I've got a few more slides. I want to talk about some of our functionality in more detail, and then we'll finish off with a little bit more software. Okay, so I'm using Google Chrome just because I always use Google Chrome. I've logged into sofco already. I've just got a shortcut on the top here, and this presents me with what we call the tile screen. So here you can see the different sofco modules, and I'm working in here at English, naturally because English is my first language. But if I want to switch the language, then I can do that at the top here. So if I'm a French user, then obviously I get the system in French. If I'm in Russia, for instance, and I speak Russian, I can have this in Russian, and obviously the language that gets displayed per user when they log on is that user's default language. We then enter the application through the tiles. I'm going to go into supply planning today, demand planning tomorrow. Now, we're not doing scheduling just yet, but if I click on there, I'm not authorized to it, but I do get information telling me how to get authorized and a rough outline of what sofco scheduling does. But for today, I'm going into supply planning. So as I go into supply planning, this takes me to what's called the workbench. So this is my main navigation area. If I want more space, I can go to the top here and go full screen so that sofco fills my screen. So along the top, I can see different tabs depending on the modules I'm authorized to. So even though I've come in through the supply planning tile, I can still get at my demand planning dashboards, for instance, because I'm authorized to those. These I can then click through. I'll just before I do, I'll just point out at the bottom, the system keeps a track of the dashboards you've visited recently. So if you just want to use that as a shortcut, if you've got a large number of dashboards, it knows when I last viewed it, when I last modified it, who it was. So underneath there's an audit trail of the people logging into the system, what they're using and what they're changing and when. And equally, if you just wanted to keep some pinned dashboards as shortcuts, then you could do that as well. I'll just nip up to the top here, you can see two little red lights just bleeping away quite nicely. This is where the workflow comes in. So for instance, where I'm pointing at the minute, if I want to send a message to another user within the process, I can do that, and I would receive any messages here. Now there's two types of message I could receive, which could be from another user or something that is part of the automated workflow. So if you have a collaborative process, for instance, and interdependencies between factories, and you need to communicate in the right sequence the steps of the process and know when steps are complete. When they're complete, the system can execute automated messages to the next user down the line. And at the end here, my user profile, and if I want to log out of the system. So what I'm going to do first is, let's go and have a look at a high-level S&OP dashboard. So I select my S&OP dashboard, and that pops up on the screen here. So there's kind of three types of view in this dashboard. At the top, I've got some high-level KPIs. And these high-level KPIs, they use good old red, amber, and green to indicate the severity of any variances. So here, my forecast from last month has changed by 1.3%. However, my budget variance between what I'm actually producing and what the production budget was is 17.3%, and hence it's in amber. I've got some tabular views and I've got some graphical views as well. So just scroll up a little bit. Here, for instance, I've got a table showing my total position in terms of the budget, my current and planned production year to date and year to go. So you can see my production budget, current demand, my actuals year to date, year to go on production, and the same for production hours and budget and actual plan. And I can see the variances underneath. I've got a table that breaks this down into different product categories, same information. And as I move along to the right hand side, I've got charts for demand stability. So how is the demand changing from one S&OP cycle to another? And on these charts, if I hover somewhere, I get the actual value. So you can see my budget there. If it's a detailed chart and I want to see some more detail, I can use the scroll on my mouse. In fact, if I hit the pan button here, then I can drag the chart around and drill in to see particular detailed areas. And when I'm done, I can reset that. In terms of the other charts, this one's production and inventory, so I can see all of the different production categories in the charts on a period by period basis and hover and get the values. I can see it against the budget. In the background, I've got the inventory. If I want to reduce what I'm seeing on chart, I can remove things. So I'll remove the budget line, I'll take the stock out. In fact, all I want to see is, hang on, I just want to see fresh bakery. So the charts are easily configurable in that respect. On the same screen, I've got information about my load versus capacity versus my budget capacity. If I hover again, this is my production, and the yellow at the bottom is the amount of time I'm spending on setup. And as well, I've got an overview. In this case, this bakery business that I happen to be running today, I've got a plant in England and a plant in Scotland, and I can see going forward the load or the saturation on those particular plants. If I go back to the tables on the left hand side, the bake here, you can see I've got that's a little comment icon. So if I right click on here, I've got different options, and at the bottom I've got comments, and the comments are categorized so I can group them. So if I go in here, I know I've got a comment and there's an assumption present, and that assumption is that in order to meet the production, existing production efficiencies and planned levels of labour are maintained. So all text within the system is date stamped and time stamped, and we know who, and it's user stamped as well. And this text can be maintained at any level in the hierarchies or at any cell. As well, you notice here when I right click, I've got the option to drill down as well. So if I come down, my biggest category is fresh bakery. If I want to drill into fresh bakery and see the product families, it's a case of right click and drill down. Then immediately I have the different product families returned. My biggest family is blonde breads. If I want to, I can drill all the way down to the SKU, this particular level. And you can see, hopefully at the same time, both the charts are updating as well. So at SKU level, it gets a bit messy, clearly, because there are an awful lot of SKUs down there. But what I wanted to do was just illustrate that it's easy to drill through large volumes of data and get to low levels of detail. If I want to reset the chart back to, or the table back, I can reset the drill down and I'm back at the top level again. Now, also from here, in fact, actually, if I go down again, if I go back to fresh bakery and I go to blonde breads, I can also navigate to lower levels of detail here. So for instance, if I want to focus on blonde breads, which is my largest category, I can right click, navigate to budget details, and this opens up a new dashboard for me. But this dashboard in this case is carried forward the filter of just blonde breads. So what I get now is a different view. So now I can see with additional information as well as the budget, I can actually see things around safety stock. I can see closing stocks as well. And I've now moved to monthly time buckets. I can see my year to date in the grey, and looking forward all of the periods year to go. I can see it on a time series in the chart, a slightly differently formatted chart. And underneath I can see all of the individual, I can start to select the SKUs, but I'll come back to that in a moment. I just want to point out at this point, at the top, we have an extra couple of buttons. We have the dashboard. So if you just want to quick navigate to a different dashboard, you can do it from here rather than having to go back to the workbench. Or if you want to go back to your previous dashboard, you just click the back button and it takes you straight back. Good. I'm going to go back again to the budget detail, navigate to budget detail, but this time I'm going to go from the bake category level. So this navigate works at multiple categories and can be set up between multiple screens. Let's navigate to budget detail. So this time I've got the bake category in the top level, but what I want to do is I want to make some adjustments in my plan to some of the SKUs. But which SKUs? So if I right click here, I get a navigation table. And that table lists all of the SKUs that belong to the bake category, but it lists them in descending order of the volume of the contribution. So this top SKU is 8% of production in the bake capacity. It also gives me a little bit of information about it before I start to navigate to it, so that as well as its contribution, I can see, are there any stock out quantities? No, they're not. No, there aren't. Are there any? If there were, how many buckets? I'm below on some safety stock. I know that here, and again, this can be sorted, and the number of buckets. And if I want to look at any of these, it's just a matter of clicking on this one at the top, and you can see this screen here refreshes. Or if I click on any of them, there is an update. But I go to the one at the top here. I can now look in detail and make any changes that I want to. A different set of measures here, because as well I'm working at below the budget level, because my actual production v budget is calculated at the lower level and dynamically aggregated up to product family. So here I can see the historical, but what we can also do now is we can drill in to individual weeks. So if we want to look at it in weeks or periods, or look at it in periods with just the drill in, we can do that. So here, and as well, these are the editable cells. So if I want to update my safety stock cover or key in some locked quantities, I can do that. Down here as well at this level, if I want to do any comments, I can. So here I've got cell comments, and I can add those, and as I add them, they get date stamped, time stamped, and user stamped. So I can work with the plan, but see at a lower level, but dynamically see the impact at a higher level. I'm going to move on from here. I'm going to just take a more detailed look at capacity in the system. So rather than go back to the dashboard, we'll go to the capacity screen. Sorry, rather than go back to the workbench, so I can go directly. Again, similar sort of format. At the top, we've got a range of cards with the red and the amber colours in this place. So we're introducing as well new measures in that as well. With the increased performance, we can handle bigger and bigger volumes of data and bring more information in for the planner. And as well, you notice as well in the planning system, we're dealing with historical periods as well as future. So we've got, for instance, how many changeovers, what's the unplanned downtime, what's the planned downtime, and again, utilisation, again, budget for labour hours. And if I scroll up a little bit, here I'm looking at the capacity of my plant. We've got the English plant and the capacity of the Scottish plant at an aggregate level, labour on the right-hand side, and then the supporting charts to go with it. From here, if I want to look at the English plant in more detail, I can do that. I can drill down. That then takes me down the resource hierarchy. I can see the loading on the bulk lines. I can see the loading on the pack lines. If I want to drill in further, the pack lines, again, I can drill down. And from here, I've got various information that I'm working with. It just gives me that high level view of the situation in the plant. I can reset from there if I want to now as well. I can then navigate to the resource planning screen and start to look at things in more detail on the individual line if I want to make some adjustments to capacity. From bulk one, sorry, what I'll do is, again, in navigation table, I wanted to go to pack line 1, I just select pack line 1 in the navigation, and there we go. So from here, I can see information on all of my standard shifts. Again, I'm in periods, by the way, if I open up, so it's standard shifts, additional, standard hours, I can apply additional hours, I can adjust efficiency, I can see my total hours of capacity, planned workloads, setup times, workload, remaining capacity, saturation, all of these things that planners need to see and are interested in. If I want to see the parameters or make any global adjustments to capacity, I can right click. This opens up the parameters table for that pack line, so I can make changes here, but as well, this is the first site that we get of the result of the insights. So here in the background, some analysis has been carried out in terms of this hyperparameterization that Keith talked about earlier. And an insight is we are currently operating at 95% efficiency on that line, but some analysis of shop floor data capture data suggests actually that parameter could be increased to 98.5. So therefore, we can adjust this here, and then from there, we could go off, run a scenario, run the FPA algorithm, and examine the results of that and examine how that impacts the plan. Okay, I just want to switch across back to PowerPoint for a minute and just talk about some of the other new functionalities in more detail that we've added. Keith mentioned pre-planning. So what does sometimes happen is with planning, and those of you who are supply chain planners will know this, that you can run a plan and you're just not happy with the results of the plan. And we get this from calls from customers as well. And what happens is we then start to investigate the data. And while all of the data is correct in terms of, shall we say, referential integrity, it's not always good data to work with, and it's affecting the plan. So we're turning this the other way around, and rather than just doing integrity checking, we're doing checking on the quality of the actual data itself. So this will need rules to help us find the exceptions with this. But on the left here, these are some of the typical exceptions that we get in projects and with our existing customers. So inventory records are out of sync with demand records, for instance. Negative inventory records, inaccurate open purchase order records or small residuals, incompatible lot sizes at different levels of the bills of materials, missing data in routings and bonds, and as well large amounts of obsolete data. So pre-planning will be there's a dashboard there that says, right, these are the things that need checking. Check it all before we do the plan, and then straight away you're getting the good quality plan. Routings and bills of materials, new function. We're simplifying the definition of resource, and we've introduced specific resource types, including a new resource type of storage tanks. Time phasing of routings, again, have been simplified, particularly when you're changing elements of the routings. In terms of accuracy of the plan, we've added new functionality in terms of setup groups and introduced allowances for cyclic cleaning. This is particularly important for our food or process-oriented customers. And Keith mentioned DDMRP. While we can do decoupling points now, we've redone it, and it's new improved decoupling points to support that. And to support DDMRP, we're using a mixture of existing functionality and new functionality. So existing parameters like lot sizing are obviously being used, and existing net flow, average daily usage calculations can be utilised. I mentioned the simplified BOMs, but new calculations such as lead time factors on top of the decoupled lead time, buffer zone calculations which can be adjusted dynamically, and the visualization of those buffer zones. And as well, we have a new FPA algorithm, which I'll talk about in a moment, but that as well can be driven by the priority of buffer statuses rather than just the traditional order priorities, customer priorities, and due dates. And in terms of our FPA, or finite planning algorithm, the reason we've rewritten it is that there is new technology available now. So we've rewritten it for that new technology and employed best practice maths in there to optimize the performance of it. We've simplified parameters. For instance, order splitting is now dynamic using binary search techniques and pre-selection processes rather than it being passed as a parameter. New functionality in locked orders, safety stock, buffer planning. Pegging now is a separate final processing and a rules-based processing step. And we've introduced transparent algorithm logic results. Now, the reason we've particularly introduced that is we've often been asked by planners, well, the system's planned this here, but I'm not entirely sure why it's planned it. So the results explorer is to really answer that why question for planners. And if you think what's going on with a finite capacity planning algorithm, you know, there are lots of different steps in the calculation and lots of different decision points that the system is making based on the rules that have been applied, and the answers, and it comes down to kind of three answers. It comes up with a feasible plan, or something is infeasible due to capacity or resource shortage or material shortage, and the planner wants to know why. So whilst we've always had background logging, it's been quite technical, and for our consultants as well. So we're converting that into easy to read logic that explains why a particular plan has been made on for a particular quantity in a particular time bucket on a particular resource. And the machine learning that Keith talked about, hyperparameterization. So think of a lot of the parameters that drive the plan. So we can learn from the actuals. So capacity, you know, what's the downtime that's really happening? What's the real amount of change over time? What are the real throughput rates? Because these things aren't necessarily always as up to date as they could be. What are the real delivery times from suppliers or from other locations? So learn from that and then visualize it as insights and place it next to the existing parameters and let the planner change it, rerun the plan and compare the KPI results in a scenario to see if these are good. But the objective is always improving the quality of the plan. So I'll move back to a couple and have a look at another couple of screens now. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about KPIs. So I'm going to go to the ops KPI screen. So the screens I've looked at so far have really been very much at a kind of S&OP level and looking down over and drilling down. I want to look at some detail now in terms of, and as well, how do we get to that detail in the case of when we have exceptions. Let's go back to full screen again. So as you've seen in many screens, we've got the three elements again that we've been talking about. We can see the cards at the top. This time you can see some different cards that have been introduced. Customer service, may well have to come in from the ERP system, but this can be, the idea is to give the supply planner a complete picture of what's going on, of all of the main KPIs that are related to planning without having to go to different systems or have windows open from other systems. You know, valuations, yield, scrap, actuals, you know, and then again, something else, real yield and real loss. This can be compared to what's in the bill of materials in terms of the yield, so we can plan accurately. Here we've got some tables that deal with some of our classic planning exceptions. So here we've got capacity shortages, material shortages, stockouts, under safety stocks, but now these are bucketed as well, as opposed to just being an as at now. So we're saving this, we're looking at the past. So capacity shortages, what we want to know is, are we getting any better? Well, actually with stockouts, we've had a bad few periods. Period -2 out of 863 SKUs, there was none. Last month there was 1, this month there's 2. We'll have a look at those in a moment. Under safety stocks, but again, some of these are down to, remember, we're running higher than we were budgeted. Resource exceptions, again, we can see them over time. Something new we introduced to visualize: production adherence. You know, how good is the factory at actually making the plans that we deliver to them? Scroll down a little bit. On the right hand side, again, just in different places, some of the charts that we've looked at already to give us that overview of what's happening in the plant, but now as well some of our planning insights, so we can see them in text form. So here, for instance, we're looking at a particular SKU. It's defined as a make to stock item, but there's no safety stock value defined. So, you know, tell us about that. And as well, based on demand and forecast accuracy, the system is suggesting a type of safety stock, i.e. that's based in colour, and a value, so we can navigate there. We can click that we've reviewed this as well to take it from the list. And there could be different types of insights. So I've got some lot sizing ones as well. You can search on these. So here, for instance, it's making suggestions about the minimum lot size. Currently its parameter is 250, but looking at the overall demand, this year's demand is only 138 cases. This would result in huge amounts of stock generated. So the system is prompting constantly for the planner to look at parameters in the system to give the algorithm the best chance of a quality plan. Equally further down, we've got resources as well. So here, for instance, shop floor, I should have pulled that out a little bit, but shop floor, we'll look at this one in the detail in a minute. Shop floor data capture suggesting around the efficiency. Here it's 95%. We saw earlier, it suggests, I'll show you in the detail in a second, but it's suggesting raising it to 98.5%. So these are all KPIs and actions for the planner. So this is where on a day-to-day basis, the planner comes to make those changes. To get to the detail, I want to have a look at these two stockouts particularly. Right click, navigate to PU planning. So in this particular screen, as in resource planning screens, what we've done is bring as much information and to make the fastest and easiest navigation for the planner to work with these different exceptions. So here we're looking at the planning unit detail again. Again, we've got it in period time buckets, but we can drill into weeks as and when we want to. So we can see that exception here, -1249. All of the usual supply, inventory and demand metrics that you would see. But on the right hand side, we've got the exceptions explorer. So this is the first exception that I've come down. Now remember there were 2. And if I right click on the navigation table, you can see the navigation table has only passed through the 2 exceptions. Let's have a look at this one first. What I've got here is a full tree view of the routing and the bill of materials that is related to this exception. At the top, I can see that this is the exception at this level because it's in red. But equally, if there's exceptions at any other level, they'll be in red and I can navigate straight there. So if I wanted to look at the semi-finished item, I just need to click on the net 03. If I want to look at my raw materials, I just click on the raw materials. If I want to look at my packaging, for instance, it's an input. You can see my packaging there. If I go to the lowest screen, I've got the resource screen as well. So I've got the pack line that this product is driven on. So single click, I can move up and down the bill of materials, but only go to the bits that I want to. And if you've got a really deep bill of materials, you know, we've got customers with 10, 15, 20 layers in there. You can collapse the areas that you're not interested in, or there's a filter to show just the layers, the levels that have exceptions. So the whole point of this is very simple and easy navigation to the exceptions. I've got an exception here, and as a result, things I've needed planned in this bucket are actually planned in week 32. So why is the system planned in week 32? So I can go to the algorithm logic explorer, and this is answering the why question. I'll come to the solution to the question in a moment, but this is the why. Click on the logic explorer, this pops open a new window. There's my SKU, there's my production order. Here's the rule that's applied in the algorithm. So it's backward planning. And we have forward planning rules, backward planning, backward forward planning. It's looking to advance production before it looks for an alternate route. So we can see that's the rule in the time sequence. Production is required in week 31. We can't plan it till week 32. Why? Because there's no available capacity either before or equal to week 31 in a bill of resource operation, and that is on pack line 01. And we're just showing pack line 01 in this case because it's the only option. There is no alternative. So the system's telling us why it has done certain things, but then at the lower level, if I then want to go and make a change, I've got pack line 1 here. I don't need to go to another screen. I can make that change in the capacity. So again, if I drill into the relevant weeks, I can adjust, I can add additional hours, do whatever I need to do, run the FPA, go through my other exceptions, run the FPA to resolve them. And then once I've made adjustments there, I can move on to my next exception. Now, if I just want a summary of exceptions as well, alternatively, or if I want to know how to resolve it, I can equally right click and there's an exceptions option. And again, this pops open a simple language-based window. So the diagnosis of the exceptions that we've got, and if you have multiple exceptions, it will list them. So we've got a shortage of capacity on pack line 1. As a result, the system planned 1619 late in operational week 32. If you want to resolve that, you need to find 1.498 hours on pack line 01 to meet the shortage, and that number's arrived at just from the shortage quantity by the throughput rate on the available line. So in terms of what we've looked at, hopefully I've shown you there both talked about technology, and hopefully you can see the new technology in terms of the user interface. We've looked at drilling down from high levels, we've looked at exceptions, we've looked at cards, manipulating graphs, working through tables, working by exception, additional new functionality as well in terms of routings, in terms of algorithms, in terms of making the life of the planner easier as well, though, in terms of navigation, in terms of information provided, in terms of making sure that the system is fed with the best possible quality data as a basis for the plan, but as well capturing more data from different sources, from sources not currently being captured, to add those insights, again, very much to improve the quality of the plan.
Thank you, everybody. If anybody would like any further information or a deeper dive, then please get in touch with us. We're more than happy to do that. As I said earlier, this product is available now. We have simple migration paths to those existing customers, so it's fairly straightforward. Thanks everyone for your time, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.